Good morning, everyone. We're back. We were here late last night covering the transfer deadline day, but we're live as the hour passed. Josh, we didn't know if Joel and Vuka had signed for Celtic or not. He has. He's signed for Celtic since then. Welcome to the Celtic Way, everyone. I am your host, John McGinlane, joined by Josh McCafferty again this morning. We're here to chat through the transfer window, deadline day, anything you want to talk about. I'm keen to throw as much of today's show over to the audience as possible and take comments from the live chat, questions from the live chat, as much of you guys' input as is possible that I can possibly manage. So please let us know how you feel about this transfer window, positive or negative. Just let it rip. You know, if you want to feel positive, if you want to feel the optimism about this window, coming out this window, I'm going to let you do that, because I don't want to colour the reaction to this transfer window, Josh, too much on how we personally feel about it. Everyone's feeling a lot of different ways about this one, I'm sensing. From what I've seen from all the reaction to the window over the last 24 hours, we will talk about some of our own opinions as well, of course, but I'm happy to take the kind of the lead from the chat this morning, so to speak.
Yeah, it was eventually announced Joel and Vuk at about midnight last night, so good job we didn't end up staying on for that announcement. Loan with an option to buy deal. I think obviously we discussed on the show last night the issues with the medical. I flagged up when he had his medical for Lorient in France after joining them from Bodo Glimt. The reports in France at the time were that there was an irregular heartbeat with Joel and Vuka, so obviously we don't know if that's the same issue that was flagged up in the medical yesterday, but the odds are that it potentially could be. So he's over the line. 5 loan signings in the door. I think the optics surrounding everything, that Celtic haven't spent a single penny on transfer fees this month in one of the most important transfer windows in a long time, do not look great. But on the opposite side of that, you've got the 2 players who've come in so far that have played, Araujo and Chwanchara, who've contributed well, they've did well. So you're just hoping that the other 3 loan signings have a similar impact.
Yep, I'm glad to see a lot of questions and kind of comments coming in already, Josh. As I say, happy to throw as much of this show over to the audience as possible. We do have another video going out later today, a podcast that I've recorded between myself and Hamish, which does take, a bigger picture look at everything. But we'll get into the weeds of everything today and everything that happened yesterday. Just on Junior Adama, just a point here, Josh. Reports this morning that we know he has an option to buy, of course, but there's reports that option to buy is worth around £4.5 million, £4.3 million is the report from Sky Sports. So not a massive outlay if we want to keep this guy. And of course, everyone's hoping that Junior Adamu is the business and that he's good enough to kind of justify a permanent fee at the end of this loan in this second half of the season.
Yeah, I think that's what Celtic want all the loan signings to be, that at the end of them you can justify signing them on a permanent basis. I watched his Celtic TV interview last night and he looks really happy to be at the club, constantly smiling, and seems like delighted to be at Celtic, which is just good. You want that sort of good feelings from the players. You want them to be excited about playing for the club, especially, and it's late in the window. I believe Junior Adamu had other options that weren't Celtic. He chose to join Celtic at the end of the day, and 4.3 million is a significant outlay, is what Celtic will have to spend on someone like Thomas Chwanchara, who's reported to be in the region of 7 or 8 million, his buy option. So 4.3 it's not too bad, and the club have covered themselves in the sense that it's not like the Adamida situation a couple of years ago where he came in, he saved Celtic season, and then at the end of the day they got their pants pulled down for £9 million, so to speak. So they've covered themselves with Chwanchara and Adamu and Vuka in that sense with those options.
Yeah, just a quick summary of the kind of the business that Celtic have done. Julian Araujo, Thomas Chwanchara, Junior Adamu, Benjamin Arthur, a deadline day loan signing from Brentford, and Joel and Vuka, all loans, 5 loans, as you say. Celtic haven't really sold anyone of note. Johnny Kenny's headed out on loan to Bolton Wanderers. Shin Yamada's out on loan in Germany, and obviously Hayato Inamura left on loan to FC Tokyo back in his homeland. Tobi Oluwayemi also left on a permanent transfer to Leyton Orient. So the Celtic squad hasn't been significantly weakened at all. And in fact, I think the main argument for this window and potentially the success of it is that front line has been strengthened. I think Junior Adamu and Thomas Chwanchara are better options than what Johnny Kenny was. I think we all have to accept that.
Oh no, totally agree. I think just in general the front line, strengthening the fact you have more options through the middle now with Junior Adamu and Thomas Tranchara. Allows Dyson Maeda to play on the left hand side, which is his best position. I think everyone would agree with that. You also brought in a right winger, which the club desperately needed since Nicholas Kuhn left. There's been a lot of reliance on Yang over the past number of games, weeks, months, and he came off just after half time at the weekend because he was tired. He was exhausted for all the football he's played recently. So to have Mvuka as an option there, I'm sure he'll get some minutes tomorrow evening at Pittodrie if he's fit and ready to go. So yeah, the strength of the front line increasing is probably the biggest positive of this transfer window. You went to that game against Rangers on January the 3rd with Johnny Kenny, Kelechi Iheanacho, Iheanacho wasn't even fit for that game. It's Johnny Kenny, Shinya Yamada as your options up front, and now you're potentially going to Ibrox on the 1st of March with Junior Adamu, Thomas Tranchara, Kelechi Iheanacho, and you've got the positive of having Mvuka as another option, and Maeda playing in his natural best position on the left hand side where he's usually so effective.
Yeah, Hazelfin asking, did Stephen Welsh get his move? He did. He has returned to Motherwell on loan. That happened just after midnight. Josh, we were there. We were on live last night. I think we got to 11:30. We were wondering whether we should continue. It took another full half an hour for Celtic to get kind of their confirmed business over the line and confirm that Joel Mvuka had arrived from Lorient and that Stephen Welsh had moved to Motherwell on loan. Stephen Welsh moves on loan largely because Benjamin Arthur has arrived on loan from Brentford, allows him to go back and get more football in Motherwell. I think it's become quite clear Stephen Welsh doesn't have a future at Celtic. I think that is obvious by now. So accept that. Are you glad we didn't hang on for half an hour? It was getting a bit silly towards the end of last night's show, Josh.
I know, it certainly was. It was one of those typical late night things where you're just up chatting utter nonsense. But yeah, Celtic got the business done, albeit a bit later. Stephen Welsh, I think everyone knew he was going to go back to Motherwell once Celtic got the centre back. Benjamin Arthur in the door. We spoke about that on last night's show and whether we think it's actually a good thing that they've got Arthur in, and would it have been better to keep Welsh perhaps, but for Welsh himself, good for him to go and get those minutes that he's wanted, and he's done so well at Motherwell this season, so good for him.
Yeah, a bit of housekeeping on last night. For some reason, the chat revolved around to my dogs, and I think I had a lot of fur all over my t-shirt because my dog had attacked me just before I went on air. I had a lot of people asking about my dogs in the live chat yesterday and after. So a bit of housekeeping here. Here's my wonderful animals. Susie and Fia is her name. The white dog is Fia. Susie is the black and white dog. Here's just a wee taste of, because people were asking what do they look like, what kind of dogs do you have, John? There's the animals there. Lovely, lovely animals. And yes, they do attack me and at time to time cover me in fur before I become live on YouTube. So yeah, there you go, everyone. Just thought I'd throw that up this morning. Back to the football. We've got comments from the live chat here. I've been starring as many as I can. There's quite a range of views, I have to say, Josh. And so there's a positivity, there's a lot of negativity too. Pinball came in straight away with congratulations for the Celtic board. Fantastic work, great 3 additions on the final day. Squad looking good to go forward. Well done, the board. Is that controversial for you, Josh? I'm not sure I'm congratulating the Celtic board here at all. I think Celtic are in a pretty dire state in terms of overall strategy and recruitment. Pinball's entitled to their opinion, though. Of course, as always, that's what we're doing today. We're kind of highlighting the audience's opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Take to your own opinion. I mean, Roy Keane would say that's his job. About goalkeepers, as I would say about the Celtic board, that's their job, to sign players and strengthen the squad in a title race. I feel like they could have gone about their business slightly better. I made the point last night that I feel like Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, Mark Fotheringham and all the guys who are doing a lot of the recruitment this month will have identified targets a lot earlier than February the 2nd, deadline day. And once they identify their targets, it's on to the higher-ups and the board to get the deals done quickly and get the players in as soon as they can. And signing 3 on deadline day clearly shows that they weren't able to do it. Now, I understand that January window can sometimes be a tough month to do business. It's a big cliche, but I think there is some substance to that point and that argument. But I feel like Celtic could have got these players in a lot earlier, and they're lucky, in my opinion, actually, that they've managed to get over the line in the last couple of games against Dundee. Not Dundee, Falkirk. My head's scrambled, as you can probably tell. Then they played Hearts. So they're lucky that they've managed to pick up results domestically since Martin O'Neill's come back without with only signing Araujo and Chwanchara, because if they didn't, I feel like there would have been much more criticism on them for doing this late business.
Brad C. speaking to us from Thailand. Good evening from Thailand. Hello, Brad. Late hour for you. I'm glad that you can join us. I'm excited about our business. Let's go win 3 cups. There's excitement. A word used there, excitement. Congratulations for the board. This isn't, a lot of people like to colour this thing like all Celtic. Well, there is literally a chant, all Celtic fans against the board, and accept that like from a kind of protest perspective, I understand that chat. But it's not as black and white as that, Josh. I think there's a sense that fans are still hopeful that Celtic can win the title this season at least and go on and maybe win a cup as well. So, sometimes it can come across as if everyone's got this same mindset of fairly doom and gloom about Celtic. But that's not the case. There are people who feel optimistic about what Martin O'Neill can achieve in this kind of 14 games to go in the Premiership.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, Martin O'Neill and all the guys behind the scenes at Lennoxtown will be having a positive mindset. I think they're very much in the frame of mind that this is a title fight and Celtic need to do all they can. They won't be having any of the noise about the board, about the negativity surrounding the club. They will just be focused solely on themselves, and winning these upcoming football matches. And I think for Martin O'Neill himself, he'll probably be quite content with the business that he managed to get over the line last night, because you look at what he said in all these press conferences. I mean, I've sat down with him a number of times, and after he signed Chwanchara, he was asked, would you like to get another striker in the door? Ideally, he said yeah, and they managed to get one for him. Sean Maloney was in the press on Friday talking about that specific kind of right winger. Martin O'Neill has previously said he wants an explosive winger 1v1. If you watch Mvuka's highlights, he probably is that kind of player. So he's got that over the line, and he's managed to get the centre back he wants to allow Stephen Welsh to go back to Motherwell. So those 3 boxes were actually ticked, and maybe the only one that remains unticked is perhaps another midfielder. But the reports last night, Celtic perhaps looking to the free agent market in that. So I think in terms of the negativity, I think Martin O'Neill and the guys at Lennoxtown will perhaps be feeling a bit positive this morning about the squad they managed to assemble for this upcoming fight.
Okay, so I'm being informed from the live chat I've been done by Pinball. Apparently Pinball's not a Celtic fan. So I accept that. I think I've maybe been done by Pinball there. I'll accept that with everyone. I'll take that one on the chin. They've done me there. I think they're a rival fan who's congratulating the Celtic board.
If I remember, was Pinball not in the chat last night, John? Like, I remember that name. A bit weird tuning into Celtic live streams if you're not a Celtic supporter twice in the space of 12 hours.
I'm going to take that in good humour, everyone. No problem with that whatsoever. We will try and get more genuine comments as we go. One here, definitely a genuine comment. We thank you for the donation. Matt Riley, we have a weak midfield. Discuss, please. So the midfield, Arne Engels obviously staying. I think, on the face of it, it's a good thing that he's staying because Celtic didn't have anyone lined up. Again, you don't want Celtic banking money just for the sake of it. I think the midfield, a lot of people were going into this deadline day, going into this final week, thinking that midfield feels strengthened. How are you feeling about the midfield, Josh? I think it has been a key weakness of the Celtic team this season, especially in these bigger matches against Hearts and Rangers. I don't think the midfield's quite been in those battles. I have worries about Arne Engels in those bigger matches as well. How are you feeling about Celtic's midfield options? It seems that Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, etc., the recruitment staff were never really in for a midfielder, so they're obviously comfortable with the options they have, or comfortable enough, otherwise they would have tried to recruit.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this before we came on, because Celtic didn't end up signing a midfielder, and that point came to mind that there are a lot of big games this season in which that Celtic midfield is ghosted. It's not really turned up and not being combative enough, especially in domestic games against Rangers, Hearts. Even going up to Pittodrie tomorrow night against Aberdeen. I know this Aberdeen team isn't the strongest of Aberdeen sides that Celtic have played of late, and Graham Shinney is suspended too, but you need them to really, for these games, turn up, be combative and be given their all. And I think too many times this season people like Rio Hatate, Paulo Bernardo, even Arne Engels in some domestic games, it's passed them by. So to have got a combative midfielder in the door at the end, it would have been nice. But then you'd have had a bloated midfield, because if you think about it right now, Celtic have already got 6 players in the middle of the park who Martin O'Neill could easily start tomorrow night, and you wouldn't be surprised. Cal McGregor, Paul Bernardo, Luke McCowan, Rio Hatate, Arne Engels, Benjamin Nygren. So you'd probably expect one of them to perhaps go if they were going to bring a combative midfielder in, and that would have been, for me, in my opinion, Paulo Bernardo. we reported that Celtic had rejected a loan offer from him from Denmark. So if he went, then they could have got someone in, but maybe just too late was the cry. I think we've all been crying out for this though for years. It seems like Celtic need this combative, strong, physical, tall, imposing midfielder in there, and it's not really been addressed by any manager, whether that be Martin O'Neill, Wilfred Nancy, Brendan Rodgers, even going all the way back to Andrew Postecoglou's time in charge. There have been the links to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, but I don't think he's even that kind of type of midfielder either. I think he's more of a kind of box-to-box, somewhat even attack-minded player. So it doesn't look like they're going to get that guy over the line. So they're not Oxlade-Chamberlain, I mean the combative kind of strong defensive midfielder. Doesn't look like they're going to sign that. So the onus is then on people like Hatate, Engels, even Nygren to stop getting lost in midfield. I know he scores goals, but he needs to actually contribute when he's playing in a three-man midfield. Up to those players to really step up in the big domestic games that Celtic are going to have between now and the end of the season.
More comments here. I've got one from Brown Warrior here. I think safely a Celtic fan, this guy. Saying, good morning, boys. I'm happy with the window. Nearly all of the problem areas have been addressed. A couple of players have gone out who weren't up to the task at Celtic. I don't care if it's loans. Yeah, Celtic, 6 loans in totals now at the club. It's like it's at the limit of what's allowed, actually. Rarely Celtic have 6 players on loan at any one time. Just on the loans itself, someone else asking, Captain Hindsight saying, do all these loans point to us knowing who our next manager is? I don't know if Celtic know who their next manager is, Josh. I think they know who it's not going to be. I think it's fairly certain at this point that Martin O'Neill will not be the permanent manager of Celtic after the summer. That's not new. You knew, as everyone, like Martin O'Neill's literally said that at the kind of arrival of the second spell. There's a sense here, and again, I don't know if this is just a coping mechanism for people, or that Celtic will invest in a new manager. What's the point in spending all these millions now when you're going to have a new man in place? So I don't think the loans tell us that they know who the new manager is going to be. I think they just know who it's not going to be. So, I mean, that is undoubtedly important context for everything that has occurred in January. I don't think it's necessarily an excuse for not signing players, because I think there's a risk with a new manager about who he fancies at Celtic, regardless if they've been here for 3 years or 3 months, but I think it is important context, heading down the road. What it is, Josh, as well, it's a massive rebuild in the summer, regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was going to make about kind of permanent signings and spending, it just flashed up in my memory. Martin O'Neill said, I think it was last week, that there is a willingness to spend at Celtic in the January transfer window. But the only way he was willing to spend decent money on players was if he was extremely confident that they were able to come in, play in his system and contribute to that, and then also contribute and do well in the next manager's system, whoever that may be, whatever style he has. So the fact that he's brought in a number of loan signings, does that then suggest that he doesn't think they're capable of maybe playing under the next manager because he wasn't willing to spend on them? I don't think that's necessarily the case, because Junior Adamu, Thomas Trinchara, Julian Araujo would have been probably silly to go out and spend a lot of money on these guys in January. It's going to be interesting to see who gets the job in the summer. I feel like it's obviously not going to be Martin O'Neill. Sean Maloney's comments on it last week were quite interesting.
Just go into that, Josh, because I think you were in the room when Sean Maloney said this. He spoke about. It seemed clear to me that he doesn't. I don't think he wants a Celtic manager's job, but he wants to be involved behind the scenes at Celtic. He said that kind of loan job that he's in is still there for him, but he also suggested that he'd made promises to the club that he'd stay in a technical role until the end of next season as well. It seems to me, and I don't know if this is out of line or not, Josh, it seems to me that from what Sean Maloney was saying, I could see him in some sort of sporting director role going into next season. That's my gut feeling on it.
Yeah, that's exactly what my thoughts were after coming out of that kind of press conference that Sean Maloney he spoke. I asked him about his stance now on the managerial position, because obviously when he came back initially with Martin O'Neill, they had the press conference at Celtic Park, and he said it wasn't an ambition of his to go and take the manager's job. So I asked him about that, if his position had changed, and he said no, it's not changed. Then obviously, as you do as a journalist, you ask a follow-up question. I said, would you be open to it? And then he said, no, I'm assistant to Martin. Didn't give much away, but the sporting director role, I feel like that'd be one that if he was offered it, he'd probably take it. He says he's enjoyed being back. The club really enjoyed it. Being in his loaning pathway role even before he became the assistant to Martin O'Neill. And that sporting director one will be open in the summer if Celtic are looking to replace Paul Tisdale. Because so often, I mean, these guys like Jay Lefebvre have left the club and Celtic have just not replaced them in these kind of behind the scenes positions. So I think Sean Maloney would be ideal for that because number one, he's very intelligent. He's not your average, no disrespect being a bit cliche, but he's not your average ex-footballer. He has a bit of game intelligence about him. He knows how the market works as well. He knows the standard of Celtic and what it takes to play for Celtic. So I think he'd be a perfect fit for that role, if I'm being honest. And he's a good guy as well. So yeah.
My ball's saying, I've slept on it. Loans were always going to be the way ahead when we were going to have a new manager next season. There's an element of truth to that as well. I still think, listen, we've said it, but I think when you're in such a dogfight of a title race, I think there's an element of, you can spend a little bit of money or try and secure a little bit of quality. I think I don't have necessarily a problem with Joel and Vuka, Josh. I think maybe my issue around it is that he seems like he's like a third or fourth choice option in that right wing position, which is never ideal. Hazel saying, I'm glad Vuka's signed. I like the look of him. Good save on the deal and clever move by Celtic to turn it into a loan to buy from a £3 million move. She's saying that that's sensible in that regard, which there's a wee bit of truth to that. What I have noticed about Vuka, he's got pace, Josh. Martin O'Neill looking for a player that can go past people. I think Vuka maybe has a bit of that about him. What's your kind of take on like this idea of he might not be? Frankly, I'm pretty certain he wasn't Celtic's first choice in the position.
No, he certainly wasn't. When Martin O'Neill was asked after the game against Utrecht last Thursday night about Faris Kajemis and Damir Redzic, he said he wouldn't be a million miles away with that. So, and Vuka wasn't even mentioned at that point in time. He didn't surface in terms of being linked to Celtic until Saturday morning. So that tells me that between Thursday and Saturday morning, some things collapsed with Kajemis and Redzic. So he's arguably the third choice in terms of the right winger spot. I'll be intrigued to see what Martin O'Neill says about that situation today. He's got a press conference this afternoon at Lennoxtown. And in terms of Vuka, I said it last night, you don't get a move to Bodo Glimt initially if you don't have something about you. He knows Sebastian Tenetke, mentioned that in his first Celtic TV interview, played with him at Bodo Glimt. He gets his move to Lorient, and throughout his career it's apparent that his goals and assists record is pretty poor. He needs to up that at Celtic, but he has that good bit of pace. He looks like he can get by a man well. His YouTube compilation looks good, but they give you a sense of what kind of player he is. They never tell you how good they actually are. So he's probably the one. Junior Adamu and Joel and Vuka are the ones I'm really excited actually to see how they got on. Just because Adamu, I mentioned last night, I've just got a good feeling about him. And then Vuka, I just don't know what it's based on. I've just got a good feeling. It's not often to say
like that. No, listen,
and
this is what transfer windows are all about sometimes. Sometimes you know nothing about the player and you just have a gut feeling. And I'm glad you've got a gut feeling about this guy, Josh. It gives me some sort of comfort.
I know. But then Vuka's the kind of, I don't know, a bit of a riskier one. Obviously, it's a bit frustrating for a lot of people that they were linked with a player like Kajemis. Everyone was looking at his videos and speaking about him doing well in Serie B, and he's a guy who was on an upward trajectory and he was producing goals and assists. Obviously that deal didn't happen, so therefore for a lot of people it's frustrating that they've went for Vuka, whose goals and assist record isn't great.
Josh, well, we're this straight in. This highlights the range of opinions that are going. Just Michael Ross straight in, and Vuka looks garbage, to be honest. So there we go. That's where we're at. I mean, that's listen. Everyone's going to have everyone's going to have a reaction to what has transpired over the last month or so. Again, I don't think there's any wrong opinions here.
I know, I think the one thing is everyone will have their own opinions about players before they sign and try to predict how they do, but at the end of the day we can only really judge them once they've played a good number of games for Celtic, and that's when they only will be judged at the end of the day.
Matthew Ross is saying, let's see how Martin O'Neill reacts to the transfer window. If he's happy, then so am I. Again, I don't want to prejudge Martin O'Neill too much. He kind of alluded he might be, rather the overall kind of view on the transfer window from the support is that it hasn't been fantastic, but Martin O'Neill will have his own view on that. Let me put it this way, Josh. I don't think Martin O'Neill's going to be comparing the squad to a Honda Civic anytime soon, do you?
No, definitely not. That's a good point to make, actually. At the start of the window, I mean, when it opened, when Martin O'Neill initially came back, the decks were cleared on the recruitment tables. Lennoxtown, apart from the right wing position, Celtic needed to identify totally different profiles to what was there when Wilfred Nancy was manager, and that was the job of Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. So they were doing that in hand with managing the team, training every single day and getting the team prepared to win games for Celtic, and a lot of big games in January since they came back, especially when Celtic were faltering in the title race. So they had to do a lot of work behind the scenes, and I think the fact they managed to get 5 players in, albeit all on loans, maybe not the club deserve credit, but I feel like Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney and those guys deserve credit just because of the amount of work they've had to do behind the scenes, because I'm led to believe it was a lot of their own work to identify and sign these players.
That's one thing, you know, if anyone wants to take a crumb of comfort coming out, it's just like, Martin O'Neill's going to play these guys. He's not signed these players to just, you know, have them on the fringes of the squad like, you know, Yamada and Inamura were in the summer. Like, these guys are here to involve themselves over the next 14 games in the Premiership, Europe and the Scottish Cup. We're going to see minutes for these guys, Josh.
Yeah, they're not club signings, John. Let's just say that. When you look at Jemai Simpson, Pusey, Shin Yamada, Hayato Inamura, I mean, there's 3 summer signings who just never really kicked a ball, and now they're all away. They're not playing for Celtic anymore. So I don't think that's going to be the case with any of these guys, the 5 signings that Celtic have brought in this month.
Hada saying the title is now in serious jeopardy. How are you feeling about that? Give me a kind of gut feeling on the title race. I've kind of given my thoughts on this podcast with Hamish with regard and everything to do with that. It comes out later today, but I'm interested to hear your own personal thoughts on where the title race stands. I'm going to ask you, so obviously Celtic can win the league title. Do you think they will? And that's the question I'm asking you, Josh. I know it's a big topic at this hour of the morning.
Yeah, certainly that is a big topic for my wee brain. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be really difficult. They've got 2 teams, Rangers and Hearts, who are doing well, who've had good January transfer windows on paper. Hearts are 6 points clear at the minute. I think Celtic are capable with the signings they've made, with Martin O'Neill at the helm. They are in with a really good chance. And I feel like, actually, out of all the teams, I think arguably Celtic have the most room for improvement. Just with the signings they've made, with the way they've been playing recently, I still think they can go to a higher level than what they currently are and play better than they currently are, breed more confidence in the team and get playing. So they're capable of winning the league. I just don't know. I would hate to call it at the minute, John. It's just one of those ones. Like, I feel like my opinion on it changes every single week. Yeah. Like, after the Tynecastle game, I thought Celtic are still with a chance, but I don't think they'll do it. Then after Rangers drop points at the weekend and Celtic get over the line at Falkirk in a tricky game, then I'm thinking, right, okay, Celtic could go on to do this. But I think it's just 14 games to go, 14 cup finals. One benefit Celtic have actually in this title race that I don't think is getting spoken about enough is after the split, Celtic have got Rangers and Hearts at home. Yeah. Obviously Hearts have got to go to Parkhead, and then Rangers have got to go to Tynecastle. So I think Celtic are at home for both those games after the split is really, really good. Just given the pressure that's going to come into it in the final stage, and that's another key advantage Celtic have. There are winners in that dressing room, from the coaching staff to the manager to the players, who have been there and done it a number of times over, compared to Rangers. For example, I look at the end of their game against Hibs, they look very desperate. A lot of their players have never won a league title before, their manager hasn't won a league title before. Then Hearts, if it comes to 5-6 games to go, if they've got a 4 or 5 point lead, their bottle comes into it because the club have never been in this position in about 40 years. Whereas Celtic will remain calm because they've been over this a number of times before, and that's another key advantage they have too.
Yeah, interesting questions here. Thanks again for the questions. As I say, we're continuing to bring in questions and comments from the live chat. That's what this morning show is all about, and we're trying to throw it over to you guys as much as possible. Dennis Jameson from Facebook, interesting to see what Europa squad looks like now. Brad saying, what 3 players will we add to the Europa League squad? So yeah, everyone, if you're not aware, Celtic can only add 3 of their new January signings. There's been 5 of them, of course. They can only add 3 of them to the Europa League squad for the Stuttgart game and subsequent rounds. So you've got Araujo, Finchara, Adamu, Benjamin Arthur and Joel Mvuka. what's your kind of gut feeling on which three kind of Martin O'Neill will go with here, adding to the squad? I think Julian Araujo is a certainty. I would say Thomas Trinchara is a certainty. And then from Adamu, Arthur, and Vuka, I'm really wondering what Martin O'Neill goes with here. I think potentially might be in Vuka, just because he plays in a different position to Thomas Trinchara. I don't think that's a reflection on Junior Adamu. I think it's more of a reflection of Celtic's positional needs and that need on the right flank. But you do have Yang there, you do have James Forrest there, so like, where do you kind of sit on it, Josh?
Yeah, it's obviously Trinchara and Araujo will be in the squad. It's just a toss-up between Adamu and Mvuka, because I don't think Benjamin Arthur is going to be in there. So yeah, you'll obviously have two strikers in Kelechi and Acho, Thomas Trinchara, and then Daizen Maeda will be able to play there if needed, if worst comes to worst. But right wingers, if he doesn't include Mvuka and he goes for Adamu instead, then he'll only have Yang and Forrest. So that probably tells me that it will be Mvuka. I'll need to fully look into the rules. So obviously they can make 3 changes, but Callum Osmond got a long-term injury. He's going to be out for the season. Now I know, obviously in the league phase, Celtic were able to make 1 change to their squad during it because of a long-term injury to a player. So I just wonder if they may be able to make an extra change to this one because of the long-term injury. Just that's something I'll need to look up in due course and maybe get back to everyone on.
Yeah. People suggesting it might be the 3 front players. Plunge saying the 3 front players. For me, Plunge, I understand what you're saying. I would have Araujo in there, though. I know because maybe in saying that, Anthony Ralston is there. Colby Donovan doesn't need to be included in the initial A squad because he can be included on the B list. So there is cover at right back. I'm just liking the look of Araujo now. I think I prefer him, if at all possible, to be playing in Europe. Listen, it might only be for the Stuttgart game, so maybe it's not a massive decision to make. I would probably have Araujo in the 3 though, rather than the front 3 players that Celtic have signed.
Yeah, to be fair, you never know as well what might happen between now and the Stuttgart game. It's 2 weeks on Thursday. There could be injuries between now and then. That might eventually force Martin O'Neill to pick certain players instead of actually having to debate over which ones he does put in the squad. But like you say, it might only just be for 2 games. Depends. And I think, are you able to change the squad, John, with each round of the Europa League, or is this just the set squad now?
I don't think so. I think this is until the end of the season, Josh.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Curly's asking, when does the squad have to be submitted? There's plenty of time, 5th of February, I think it is, so a few days, so a couple of days at least, so there's no mad rush to register these players. I guess they'll be doing it after the game at Pataudry, just in case there's an injury picked up in that. There's also the kind of vague possibility of a free agent signing, as I've kind of discussed as well. I'm not expecting major free agent signings, everyone. But yeah, 5th of February is the Europa League squad registration, so a couple of days left. And I'm quite interested to see who makes that squad. And just try and bring in more comments. JG saying, we have been let down yet again. Who knew? We need to continue the campaign against the board while closing ranks to support the team fanatically. No sitting in silence. The team need us. Martin needs us too. There is a sense that, obviously, this has been a mantra for a long time, Josh. Back the team, sack the board is the kind of chant from a lot of these protesters, or kind of the slogan for these. The team needs support, and I know, regardless of everyone's feeling around the club, I know a lot of people are feeling pretty scunnered with the direction of the club and kind of those in charge at the top of the club. It all kind of needs parked now to an extent, and you accept that you're not happy with the strategy of the club, but this team needs this most vociferous backing that it's ever received, because 6 points behind Hearts with 14 games to go. This is no joke. Celtic are, every game is almost a last chance saloon at this point.
Yeah, the team needs drastic support from the people in the stands over the next number of weeks and months. John McGlynn speaking about it after the game at the weekend, saying that he thought Parkhead was a bit toxic until Celtic got the first goal, and if that's what opposition managers are thinking, then that's not good for Celtic. It doesn't help that the Green Brigade are absent from a lot of these games. Let's not beat around the bush there. They add so much to the atmosphere and feeling within Celtic Park with a constant singing and such. So if something could happen by getting them back in between now and the end of the season, I think it could be a big benefit, not just off the pitch in terms of the mood in the stands, but on the pitch too, with the team getting that vociferous backing that they need. And Callum McGregor said it after the Hearts game that he needs, it was essentially a title rallying cry he made, that the support need to get right behind the team going into these final 14 games, or 15 as it was then, because, like you say, every game is a cup final. If Hearts beat St Mirren tonight in Paisley and Celtic falter at Pittodrie tomorrow evening, you can arguably count Celtic out of this title race. So the team need drastic, they need drastic support, and all the support they can get at this moment in time.
Brian Warrior giving me a history lesson here, John. We're aware 2 wins adrift in 1986 with 8 games left. 4-4 10-man draw at Ibrox. Plenty of twists and turns left with 14 games left. I accept that. I think this title race is not over. Like I'm not saying that at all. But yeah, I do feel there's a sense of unity needed. You mentioned the Green Brigade there. Like I don't think it's even about anyone's personal feelings for the Green Brigade or anything. It's like, what's the best version that Celtic can move forward with? I think the best version of Celtic for me that can move forward is with more of a unified feeling within Celtic Park stands, and I'm hoping for Celtic to show a bit of leadership on that at some stage.
Yeah, and I think it's what gives Celtic the best possible chance of winning the title and being successful this season. And I think when the race is so close as it is, 6 points, Hearts lose a couple of games, suddenly it's goal difference separating them. Goal difference, or goals for, is separating Celtic and Rangers at the minute. You need every little small advantage you can get, and I think the Green Brigade give you a slight edge. John McGlynn touched on it. The opposition managers think that as well.
Folk, last call for questions and comments. I will try to bring in a bunch more. Des Harkin asking from Facebook, will Jota get back? No, Jota's not expected back this season, everyone. He had a slight setback with his kind of injury recovery that required minor surgery or a minor operation. Martin O'Neill described it also. Certainly no more major surgery on his knee. I think it might be some sort of keyhole surgery, and he's just to clean up and tidy up some ongoing issues with his knee, of course. So it's going to take him a bit longer to get back. Martin O'Neill said he's not expected back this season. So yeah, if he does, it'd be a major bonus. But no Jota, and that's kind of why Celtic needed to recruit in the wide areas in this transfer window. Josh, sad for Jota. I hope we see the best of Jota again at Celtic, because at his peak, when he's in full flow, nothing better to watch than a Jota in full flow in a Celtic shirt, Josh.
Yeah, it's a real shame for him, because that's a full season and more taken away from his career. It's a real shame, because he's a top player. He's a favourite among the fans. He would have added so much to Celtic this season. Yeah, it's sad. It was at Lennoxtown for one of the press conferences. I think it was last week, a couple of weeks ago. I lose track of time now, but he was walking. He didn't have any knee brace on or anything. He was walking up the stairs quite fine. But like you say, we don't expect to see him back at any point between now and the end of the season. And it's sad as well that Martin O'Neill didn't get to work with him. I asked Martin about that, how he feels, and he obviously said it's sad because Jota looks like a really good player, and he's a cheery guy. He seems like a really nice guy behind the scenes too. So hopefully, if he gets back to his fighting best and fighting fit next season, then it'll be another advantage for Celtic. And you don't want to say it's like a new signing, because he's technically not a new signing. And your feelings with Jota, without going on too much about him, is that he comes back, and players often, when they come back from these sort of long term injuries, they're not the same. And they just struggle to pick up after that. So you're hoping that he's done his rehabilitation all good, and that he's good to go for next season.
Jason asking any Alistair Johnston news. Latest I heard on Alistair Johnston, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, March was the timeline.
Yep.
Martin O'Neill last gave Alistair Johnston, so fingers crossed there. Again though, when you've been out for months and months, it can take a while to get back into kind of match mode, even if you rejoin training. So if you see pictures of Alistair Johnston in training in March, it might still be a few weeks from that point that he gets back to match fitness.
Yeah, because Marcelo Saracchi was in training last Wednesday ahead of the Utrecht game, and he's still not been in a matchday squad in the 2 games since. So I think even once the guys get back to full training with the team, after these long-term injuries, even more so for Alistair Johnston, because he's been out since October, it'll take a good while for them to build up that match sharpness, and enough for Martin O'Neill to play him.
Jerry asking, is Sriracha back in the squad? Is he fit? He's back in training. He's back in full team training. So I don't know in terms of his fitness or how he'll be managed coming back into it. That's the problem with these hamstring injuries. Sometimes you never want to rush a player back. So I'm assuming Sriracha will maybe come back as a substitute first and foremost, and then ramp up into a regular schedule of matches again. but he's been training for about a week now, so he shouldn't be too far away in terms of getting back into the match squad, at least. As a starter, I think he's probably still another couple of matches away, Josh.
Yeah, probably. I would expect maybe if he's going to start, maybe Livingston at home a week tomorrow. Probably maybe even Dundee at home on Saturday in the Scottish Cup. He'll be a big plus for Celtic having him back available if he can stay fit. Both Tierney and Sriracha, very good options at left back when you're playing week in, week out, midweek game, weekend game in Europe too, because he's a quality player, Sriracha.
Hazel, can't wait to see Martin O'Neill's next media conference. Is that today? Yep, he's up today, folks. So you will hear from Martin O'Neill ahead of Aberdeen. Again, everyone will be very interested to hear what he says about the transfer window and how, as his happiness with the players that have come in, but also maybe any business that Celtic might have missed out on, and kind of what expectations he's going to set for the rest of the season. So we await that as well. I think that might be it for today, guys. Again, thank you for all your comments and questions. It's really helped move the show along today. We've got a lot of these shows at the moment, so I'm trying not to repeat myself too much or have too much of the same type of show. So I very much wanted this to be a live audience show. So I really appreciate you taking that and getting involved in that spirit. Josh, kind of any final thoughts before you head off and prepare for these press conferences later?
No, not particularly. Just looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Actually, Aberdeen not in the greatest run of form, so it's going to be interesting to see how Celtic do up there at Pittodrie, and never an easy game up there.
Yeah, it's never. Listen, I take 1-0 wins in the depths of every single game that comes between now and the end of the season. That's where my expectations are at. We all want to hold Celtic to a higher standard. In the context of that, in terms of holding Celtic to the standard of where we think they could be, I don't think, my personal feeling is I don't think January has been a success. But that is almost an aside to the issue of Celtic winning this title race and being equipped to win this title race and doing everything they can to win this title race. There's lots of contradictions at Celtic at the moment, I feel like. Celtic should be in a much better place. I feel like Celtic and the Celtic support specifically, who invest so much money into Celtic, a large proportion of Celtic's turnover is generated by rank and file supporters. I feel they've been badly let down by the Celtic board, not just this month, not just the summer, but for a few years now. Yes, Celtic's in a good place financially, in a good place in a kind of business sense. I'm looking for someone at this club to show the leadership required to better marry football ambition with good business sense. I don't think that balance and that connection is quite there at the moment, and I think that's my overall issue with Celtic at the moment. That's how I feel about it. But I fully accept there is a title race to win, and I think Celtic can still win this title. I'm not saying they will win this title, important distinction there. I think they can, and I'm really hoping Martin O'Neill has found a group of players that he likes and can work with and can move forward with. We all hope new Celtic signings can be good, so whether you feel like they're underwhelming or you're feeling energised about the people who have come in, it's all about what they do from this point onwards, and they should be judged in what they do in a Celtic shirt. And we move forward in that spirit. We move forward into Aberdeen, into a cup game, into all the stuff that's ahead. And we all hope the best for Celtic moving forward. Thanks you everyone for joining us today in the live chat. As I say, I've got the weekly show with Hamish coming out around tea time this evening. It won't be live, but I'll set it as a premiere so you can chat and discuss it with people in a live setting, and then it'll be archived. We appreciate your support. Leave your comments below. A lot of people check out these videos, Josh, after they go live, so if you've got any burning feelings or comments about Celtic and you've not watched us live, feel free to leave that in the comments below as well. Josh, thank you for your insight last night and this morning. It was kind of double duty for you, where we're all a bit bleary-eyed after a limited amount of sleep, but we appreciate it as always, and we'll see you next time, Josh.
Yep, see you all. Next time, probably Pittodrie is the next time we'll see everyone.
Yeah, Pittodrie will be the next time you're on the YouTube channel. In my brain, I've not even thought about that yet. That's where we are. Okay, everyone, I'm going to head off. Goodbye. We'll see you next time on